I think that for most people, 10 years is a decent chunk of time. It's a major unit of measurement, a decade, it's a big deal. A lot can happen in 10 years. Since 2010, I've moved from Ontario, started dating Kate, got married, started a YouTube channel. So much has happened and who knows what will happen in the next 10 years. The same applies for gaming. We've seen the launch of the 3DS, PS4, Xbox One, the death of the Wii U turning into the rise of the Switch. Mobile games have become a huge force in the industry, and consumer-level virtual reality is an actual reality. So today I'll be counting down my top 10 favorite games from the last decade, from 2010 to the end of 2019. Now keep in mind, favorite does not mean best. This list will be completely different from yours, and if your favorite isn't on the list, it might mean I just didn't play it. I'm not the kind of guy who goes out and immediately buys those big AAA games. Before we begin, here are some games that I loved but didn't quite make it on the list, but I figured I'd tell you guys anyways because these are still really good games that you should play, in no particular order. God of War, Sonic Generations, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Fire Emblem Awakening, Super Mario 3D World, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Titanfall 2, Mega Man 11, Tetris Effect. But over the last 10 years, these 10 games are the ones that left the biggest impressions on me. These are my top 10 favorite games of the past decade.
Number 10. I honestly didn't think a superhero game was gonna make it on my top 10 list, especially considering I kinda didn't care when it was announced or when it came out, and only played it this year. But Marvel's Spider-Man is not just one of the best games of the past 10 years, but it's one of the best games I've ever played. I'm not a big sandbox type of guy, I tend to not like open world games all that much, but holy nuts, whipping around New York City as Spider-Man is so damn satisfying. I really felt like Spider-Man. The amount of moves you get is just incredible, and they all feel useful. So many games have this skill tree that it doesn't matter. You get the skill points, you just add them on there to get a trophy or to get higher skills, and you ignore like 90% of the skills on your skill tree. But not with Spider-Man. I felt like almost everything I was earning was useful in some way. In fights, I really got better at using more things to take down enemies. The fights got more and more intense, but I found I got better as the game goes along. It did a great job with that. And this has some of the best acting and storytelling I've ever seen in a video game. I can't believe how into it I got. Honestly, I thought this was going to be one of those games that I'd play while I'd have a YouTube video going on my computer or on my phone at the same time while I zoned out, you know what I mean? But no, this game features one of the best Peter Parkers and one of the best Aunt Mays, and just it got me into it so much that I couldn't stop playing. I had to 100% this game. It was so great, and if you haven't tried it because you're just like, whatever, I've played a Spider-Man game before, no. Pick this one up. It's gotten dirt cheap. I haven't played the DLC yet, but that's gotten cheap too. Play it. It's just a phenomenal game. Number 9. So everyone in my family is musically talented. My mother, my father, and my sister can all play guitar, my dad can also play drums, and my sister can sing like a friggin' angel. And then there's me. I can't play an instrument, I can't read sheet music, and I certainly cannot sing. I mean, hell, I only kind of got into my own taste of music in my late teens and early 20s, for God's sakes. That's how little music kind of means to me in a broad sense. So when Guitar Hero and Rock Band came out, it was kind of sort of perfect for me to gamify music in a way that not only gets me playing the game, but also gets to introduce me to a ton of music that I never knew that I'd end up loving. And Rock Band 3 is the best of these. Learning from its small mistakes with Rock Band 1 and 2 and learning from the ways Guitar Hero kind of handled its brand, Rock Band 3, in my opinion, has the best bass song list in the entire series, and then adding that all the thousands of songs through DLC is one of the best party games and solo games I've ever played. Like seriously, when Rock Band became a thing, I got obsessed with it. I now play almost all the instruments on Expert if I can. I own one of those giant crazy guitars that have all the buttons on it, so as if I'm playing a real guitar. I'm not very good at that, but I have it. And even the keyboard is something I just love playing. The mix of music is just super perfect with a little bit of everything in it. Character creation is as amazing as ever, and there's something just about getting with some friends and just nailing an awesome section or an awesome song and just feeling great about yourself. I've never really been into music, and Rock Band makes me feel like I'm finally experiencing an entire different side of life that I've completely ignored accidentally. Number 8. I sort of went out of my way to not play this game for the longest time because it's not for me. It's got zombies, it's about shooting, I don't care. None of that stuff interests me. But then, one crazy winter weekend, I borrowed it from a friend, then all hell broke loose and the entire city kind of shut down for 3 days because of a snowstorm. My wife was in Fredericton on some business stuff, and I was all alone, and I was sick. So I decided to fire up The Last of Us, and holy hell. In those 3 days, I beat The Last of Us 4 times. The Last of Us is a perfect mix of well-told and well-acted story mixed with perfect gameplay that partners itself with that story to make an amazing experience. Like I said, I was sick the first time I played it, or the first 4 times I played it, and that opening scene, which I'm not going to say what happens because if you haven't played the game, it's a huge deal, just broke me. It just broke me. It still does, even though I'll play it and I'm not like emotionally compromised like I am when I'm sick. And it still gets to me, man. But while I could say that the gameplay is probably the least important part of this game, it's definitely nothing that stands out crazily compared to some games. It's just so well done, and the controls feel perfectly good. You're never feeling like you know the game is kind of not playing the way it should. It just mixed with, again, that amazing story, some of the best writing in video games, some of the best acting in video games, and just an incredible journey completely. I honestly think this game could have been on its own without a Last of Us 2 at all. Then they went ahead and announced Last of Us 2. I'm super looking forward to it, despite the fact that it's taken way too long for it to come out. But seriously, The Last of Us is an impeccable journey that even if you're not super into the genre, you should play. I've played it for my wife because she doesn't play those games, but she wanted to see the story, and we can't wait to do the same thing for Last of Us 2. This is, in my opinion, probably the best shooter I've ever played in my life, simply because for a guy who's not into that genre at all, this did something to capture me, and that's, instead of blazing action and crazy manliness and explosions, everything, it got me with an amazing story that really touches the soul. Number 7. Like I've said before, I'm not into open world games. I have choice paralysis. The second you present me with a lot of choices, I freeze up. I have no idea what I should do, and I'm worried I'll miss something. That didn't happen to me with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And yes, I know this is a fairly low number for this game to be on this list, but that just shows how amazing some of these games are to me. Breath of the Wild completely surprised me. I expected I'd enjoy it, obviously, but I didn't think it was going to land on this list because I've been thinking about doing this list since well before the Switch came out, because I knew the decade was gonna end sometime. But this one just surprised me. If you want to see like my opening sentiments on this game, at least the beginning part of the game, I call them a let's try, not a let's play, where I just did the basic area. It's about 7 episodes of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild's kind of open area at the beginning before you're really able to get free. And I was so blown away just by that one small area about how well done it was. And then after that, like, I kind of should have kept taping because I was floored by how much there was to do, and I never got bored. And that does not happen to me on games like this. I've played Assassin's Creed games, and by the end, I'm just going through checklists and things like that. And that didn't happen to me on this one. I was so happy to go explore various things and like, oh, what's that mountain over there? And I gotta climb it just because it's there. And I'm not that type of gamer usually. So the fact that Breath of the Wild did it for me is super cool. I haven't had that sense of exploration and adventure in years in video gaming. And if you've never played a Legend of Zelda game, but this is your first Zelda game, I almost feel bad for you because it might destroy every other Zelda game for you because this is such a different Zelda game. But if you're big into Zelda and you've played all the other Zelda games like I did before Breath of the Wild, then this game is going to surprise you, and it's going to make you feel something as you go out into that world and truly explore and immerse yourself. The reason why it's lower on this list than you might think is because a lot of the impact of Breath of the Wild is on the first playthrough. I've played it since, and while it's definitely fun, Now it's more of just a regular game. I kind of know where everything is, I know what to do, I kind of can do what I want to. It's fun to play around it, it's a fun playground. But that sense of adventure, that sense of not knowing, that sense of wanting to know is so important that its first playthrough is the best playthrough you're ever going to have with this game. So that's why it's a little low, because it definitely doesn't capture that feeling on every playthrough like a lot of these other games are going to have on you. But that being said, Breath of the Wild is an incredible game, and I can't wait to see what the sequel holds. Hopefully it'll be next year, I have no idea, but for now I can wait. Make the game good, Nintendo. I can wait, I'm not impatient for this one. Number 6. The game that I honestly didn't have any real expectations for. It came out this year, and this is the one that kind of screwed up the list, because I didn't really think any game from this year would make it to the list. But Fire Emblem Three Houses surprised the shit out of me. And it really shouldn't have when I think about it now, because I do like Fire Emblem games. The difference is I don't like Fire Emblem games for their gameplay. I like them because of their fun characters and just the relationships you can see. Yeah, the gameplay is fun, it's tactics, and I don't dislike him, but it's not the reason I play. So when a game doesn't have fun characters for me to latch onto, I get really bored really easily of a Fire Emblem game, and that's like what Fire Emblem Fates did to me. And I was really worried that Three Houses would do it, and to be honest, its announcement and its trailers did very little for me. The game, unfortunately, as high as it is on this list, is ugly. It's an ugly looking game. And I was really worried about that when I started playing. I was like, wow, I really thought they'd improve from the first couple trailers, because this is just gross looking. But then, as you play, you can see that the talent and all the work and all the money went everywhere else, and that's a good thing. I'm super okay for having this amazing, fun monastery to run around, a brilliant array of characters that I love so much, and amazingly deeper support relationships with these characters, fun added gameplay elements. Just, I'd rather have those things than good graphics. The good part too about the graphics though is that the character design is so good, the 2D artwork and the cinematics are so beautiful that you tend to forget how ugly the rest of the game is. And while, you know, it'd be cool if they upgrade the graphics, the fact that the character art is so good, and because that's what I focus on is the characters themselves, it more than makes up for it. To be honest, I'm actually surprised at how much I love this game. It's now become my favorite Fire Emblem game, and I didn't think that would happen. Before that, Sacred Stones was my favorite, followed closely by, I think they called it the Binding Blade, Fire Emblem 7, the first one to come out in North America. And a lot of that was just nostalgic reasons of why those were my favorites. But Three Houses blows it all away. I mean, the funny part is you'll play for like 3 hours and maybe do one battle. The rest is roaming the monastery and talking to these people, and you really feel like your students are your little family. The first house that I chose is always going to be so important to me compared to all the other houses in the game, but I still love them all too. If you want to play a game that has like a lot of dialogue, a lot of character, a lot of depth to their characters, but you don't want to play just a visual novel or something, this is the game for you. I'm so impressed with it. This could have gone so poorly, and I'm so happy that Three Houses was as good as it ended up being. Number 5. Speaking of relationships and characters and stuff, very few games make me feel for its characters like Undertale. Whew, boy, Undertale came at me, and it came at me fast. Thank you so much to my friend Katie Butland, aka The Practical Escapist. She's the one who gifted this game to me randomly. I forget the reasons, but I had like heard of it maybe a week before she gave it to me, and I was like, sure, I'll play it. And god damn it, like, holy crap, I fell in love with this game. And I know that you've probably heard a million things about Undertale. It was this giant phenomenon, so I won't get super in-depth with it. In all honesty, because you've probably heard this from a million other people, yes, the graphics suck. It's supposed to. The graphics actually get better throughout the game as the game gets deeper. The characters are not as annoying as you probably think they are. You've probably just only seen memes and fan art, and I know that stuff can get really grating when you're not into the fandom, and I apologize if there's been really bad fans, because Undertale has some really bad fans. But if you want to play this game and someone like gifts it to you, just play it for like an hour. It might not be for you, that's perfectly fine. And you've probably had the ending spoiled and the way you can play spoiled, but I got really lucky in the sense that I didn't. And it's because Katie got it for me so early in its kind of like life cycle that I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and that's sort of how to go through this game. Like, don't go through it knowing anything, and that's sort of an impossibility now. It's like watching The Sixth Sense nowadays. If you've never seen it, you're not going to be surprised by the twist ending. So, you know what I mean? That's what Undertale kind of is. But it invokes this feeling of just, I don't know, of friends and wonderful, happy feelings that a lot of games don't do. Despite how dark this game can be, it's just cool to see characters that you kind of wish were real because they'd be such cool people. And that's like a super lame thing to say. It sounds super dorky, but that's what Undertale did. And big ups to Toby Fox for doing something so incredibly well done. I mean, this like defined a small like generation of indie games, so like good job. Its simple mechanics of being a bullet hell during battles and just its very simple approach to RPG elements of walking around and talking to people is great because you're not focused so much on the gameplay, you're really focused on the characters and what's happening, that you forget that the gameplay is sort of basic and it doesn't take away from anything else, and that's good. Because some games go way too complicated, and this might have gone a little too simple, but I think it was like that so that more people could get into it, and bravo, it did its job. Bravo. Number 4. Alright, so number 4 and number 3 are so damn close that literally if you ask me like next week, this could be number 3 while number 3 could be number 4, because I just love them both so much and so incredibly almost equally. But number 4, today anyways, is The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. Link to the Past is still my favorite Legend of Zelda game. I still rank it higher than Breath of the Wild, and I still rank it higher than this one. But man, did Link Between Worlds just punch me in the face with nostalgic happiness. And not just nostalgic happiness, but a new way of looking at a game that I've loved since I was a little kid. Being able to walk around Lorule, which is kind of just the dark world from Link to the Past, with a different kind of set of eyes with different abilities and stuff was so great. And its main mechanic, and sometimes you think of that game and you don't even remember the main mechanic, but it changes the game drastically. And that's the whole idea that you can merge into the wall as a painting. It changes everything, and it doesn't feel like it would because it's just like, okay, so you can blend into the wall, who cares? No. It changes how you look at the game, how you look at every wall, how you look at every puzzle, how you look at every ability, and every item has multiple uses on top of all that. So while this is definitely not the hardest Zelda game ever, it's definitely not the deepest Zelda game ever, it is so fun to explore a 2D Zelda game like this. It's just incredibly, incredibly well done. My biggest complaint would probably be that the dungeons aren't long enough. They're fairly short, and because you can do anything in any order once you get past the opening, the difficulty is very wonky, because you can kind of do any dungeon in any order, so none of them can be super difficult, or else, you know what I mean, you'd be like, well, I'm not supposed to be here yet. And the whole point of the game is that you're supposed to be everywhere you want to be, baby. So, if you've never played a 2D Zelda game before, I think, while Link's Awakening is really good and a great beginner Zelda game, I think you're going to get more of what Zelda is meant to be from playing Link Between Worlds. It's one of those games that once I get a 3DS capture card, I would absolutely love to play this game. There's so much to do, despite how small the game is compared to games of nowadays and stuff, but it's a fresh look at a world that was already a masterpiece. It's like, imagine if they remade Super Mario World. They would have made Super Mario World 2, or 3 if you count Yoshi's Island as Super Mario World 2. And it was the same Dinosaur Island, or Dinosaur World map, but there was different levels in those maps, and they went to different places, and it was 3D, and you could, it'd just be so cool. That's what Link Between Worlds is to me. It is one of the best Zelda games ever made, and it's such a masterpiece. Number 3. Like I said, this and number 4, Link Between Worlds, could be kind of switch places at any moment, but I love this game as well for very different reasons, even though it is, again, a giant punch to the face with nostalgia, and this is Shovel Knight. The second I saw Shovel Knight, I knew Shovel Knight was going to be an amazingly popular game. I was so happy to help out with the Kickstarter. That being said, I didn't know it was going to be this big. It became just huge, and for good reason. Now that the years have gone by, this came out in, I think, 2014, I think a lot of people are starting to look at it a little bit more critically and are being like, oh, you know, once you get past the whole, it's very nostalgic, it's an okay game. And I'm like, no, screw you. The game is awesome. As a guy who plays mostly retro games, it stands up. Yes, it's very derivative. It's very derivative. Have you guys played retro games? Retro games are derivative. A lot of retro games are from the idea of like 2 or 3 other games. It's not every game that blazed its own path and did its own thing. And Shovel Knight doesn't do that. That doesn't make it bad. Yes, it's got a world map like Mario. It's got towns like Zelda 2. It's got the pogo thing from DuckTales. Yeah, okay. But the game does it well. That's the point. It takes all those good ideas from all those other good games and takes out all the bad ideas. There's no lives. Throws the whole rescue the princess thing all on its head for a great twist ending. It's got fun, memorable characters for townspeople back when, like, memorable townspeople wasn't really a thing in games. It captures everything that you wanted to feel about old school Nintendo games without all the crap that a lot of people don't remember. A lot of people look at these old school games with rose-tinted glasses and think of only the good things. People play Mega Man 2 and are like, oh, I remember this being amazing, and then forgetting how difficult it was. People play DuckTales without remembering, oh, this was really short. But Shovel Knight is all those retro games with none of its bad. And it did it so accurately and so perfectly and so expertly that it is just a well-made homage to everything that made gaming good in the 80s. You can critique the game all you want, but you'll never take away how much this game just nails it. Just nails it. Number 2. Alright, it's true. The original version of this game did not come out in the last 10 years, but a fairly heavily remade version of it did. And that is Final Fantasy IV for the PSP. The DS version of Final Fantasy IV is definitely the more modernized version of Final Fantasy IV. It's completely remade, it's got 3D graphics, it's got voices, it's got a brand new system, it's very difficult too. But the classic style of Final Fantasy IV, which is one of the reasons why I fell in love with Final Fantasy IV, is completely remastered and beautifully well done on the PSP with gorgeous HD 2D graphics, with 3D looking spells, and a great translation. Final Fantasy IV's tale of redemption and love is so great and powerful for such an old game that playing with a new coat of paint is everything I've ever wanted in remakes for Final Fantasy games. There's not one thing wrong they did with this version of Final Fantasy IV, in my opinion. Everything about it is perfect. It is the perfect version of Final Fantasy IV. It's even got some of the extra things from the other versions of Final Fantasy IV, and it unfortunately also has the Final Fantasy IV After Years. I'm not counting this on this. I did not like the After Years, but it's not. I'm not counting the collection of the 2 games. I'm just counting Final Fantasy IV. And if you ever want to play a traditional style RPG from when I was a little kid, this is the way to play it. This is how you do remasters. This is how you pay an homage to a great game. Final Fantasy IV is, in my opinion, the best Final Fantasy. Keep that in mind for maybe a top 10 I'll do sometime later before Final Fantasy VII comes out. And having it on the go, on top of that, is just remarkable. Final Fantasy IV is an amazing, amazing game, and more games need to be remastered in this way. And my number 1 favorite game of the past 10 years, Super Mario Odyssey. The point of a game is to make you feel something. It doesn't always have to be joy. It can be discomfort with a horror game. It could be an adrenaline rush with Call of Duty or other action games. For me, I play games for joy. And that's why I like Nintendo so much, because a lot of their games are about pure, unfiltered joy. And no games give me that joy like a Mario game. The last amazing Mario game for me was Mario Galaxy for the regular Wii. I adored it, and it was kind of at a part of my life that was not going super great, so it meant a lot to me. Seeing the other Mario games throughout the next 10 years was okay. 3D World is definitely fun, and I'd say probably in terms of pure quality, probably a better game than Odyssey. The new Super Mario Bros. Games were a big disappointment because they don't do anything kind of new, despite the fact that their names are New Super Mario Bros. And then, you know, Mario has a million trillion side games and spin-offs and whatnot. But Mario Odyssey captures the joy of just playing a video game more than anything I've experienced in the past 10 years. Every world was better than the last. Every second of this game put a smile on my face. Every single thing I did in this game just made me happy. Finding moons everywhere, controlling Mario, getting better at moving him around, finding ways to get moons and to end into areas more effectively and efficiently. A fun story that actually, weirdly enough, tugs the heartstrings, which is weird for a Mario game. Plenty to enjoy, to unlock, to define, to discover. And don't take my word for it, I Let's Played this game completely blind, and I'd like to think you can hear my joy and my exuberance throughout my Let's Play of this game. I was so happy when it was announced, and even happier when I played it, and there are times when I swear I could just, you know, start crying about how happy I was. Tears would, you know, start to just start to well up, because it makes me feel so happy and brings me back to a time where games weren't political, they weren't divisive, gamers weren't about trying to one-up one another, they weren't about trying to tear down a studio because it did something they didn't like. It was about a time about playing games to make yourself happy. And Mario Odyssey does this perfectly. I don't think there's been a game in the last 10 years that's made me as happy as Mario Odyssey did. And to be honest, I think it might be another 10 years before I find another game that makes me as happy. Mario Odyssey is specifically joy as a video game. And that's why Super Mario Odyssey is my favorite game of the last 10 years. So there you go. Like I said, 10 years is a long time, and who knows what the next 10 years are going to be. And like I said, this is my top 10 favorite, not top 10 best. So if there are games that you think I should have played in the last 10 years, then tell me about it in the comments below, please. Tell me your top 10 favorite games in the last 10 years. Tell me about the things that you experienced that define gaming in the last 10 years. I'd love to know, because there are so many games. There's so many games that none of us can play them all. So one of the best things about gaming and having friends who game is to tell each other what kind of games you should play, and I want you guys to do that in the comments below. You guys were nice enough to listen to me babble on about my favorite games. The least I can do is listen to you guys do the same. Anyways, guys, it is the end of 2019. Thank you so much for joining me for another year of Fill in the Blanks Gaming. I'm so happy you can join me on these journeys and these playthroughs and these NPCs and everything like that. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a happy new year, and we'll see you next year for 2020 for more Fill in the Blanks Gaming. See you guys next level.